Hey, what's up? So I talk to a lot of young guys that are either very creative, very intellectual, or intellectual creatives, or creative intellectuals, whatever you want to call it. And there's this thing that people look to the world to become famous and to change the world and to, right? And I can see with those guys that it causes a lot of stress. And as I'm thinking about writing, talking about this, start with what idea, I have some explanation for that I thought I'd share with you, because it feels like it's something that's becoming really a big issue because of the internet, right? It used to be that, there were a few actors and singers that were famous, but it was like so far away that it wasn't realistic for you to expect to be that famous or to be that well known. You might dream about it, but it wasn't like a real thing. But now it is, because we have all these people, guys, girls, old people, young people, whatever, that are becoming famous because they are publishing content on the internet, they have a lot of followers, etc., etc. So it becomes this thing where it seems actually attainable. And that also means that it's you who's to blame for not being a celebrity, right? And I could talk about that all day and whatever, but the thing is that I feel like people don't understand what's going on, why it causes this feeling of unsatisfaction, is that a word? And also that if they do achieve what they think they need to achieve to feel alright, they will not feel alright. It's inherent to the whole thing. Now, I wrote something on the whiteboard to help me explain this. I hope you can read it. If not, I will talk you through it. But basically what it all starts with is this realization of what are you? And the big problem with what you are is that it's not a single-minded thing, right? And maybe I should have written it in a different order, but basically there's this animal part in you and there's this God part of you, right? There's the body, which is a local-oriented being that responds to direct interaction with the area around it, right? It senses the light, it hears the sounds, it feels the feelings, it picks up on local things. And this is just as much a part of your being as the other part, which is the God part, which is the conceptual part, the thinking part. And I think in our world we have overemphasized in the culture this God part. We're all thinking about what we're thinking. We're all talking about what we think, right? We identify with the God part, right? I'm not my body, chop off my finger and I'm still who I am. Which is true in a way, but it also changes you, because you are both. And you can't know how your body influences your thinking. But do realize that the machine makes possible the thoughts the machine thinks. So it's just as much a part of the thinking, and maybe even a bigger part than you would like to think, that influences what you think, how you think, etc., etc. Now, when it comes to the internet, we act and think globally, right? So everything you write, everything you publish, everything you read could be coming from every part of the world, or you could be reaching every part of the world. So where maybe 50 years ago you would go outside and try to help people by helping an old lady cross the street, now if you want to help people, you publish content that could reach 1 million people that will change the world, right? This God part of us is always looking for glorification, right? God needs to feel its Godhood. And how does it do it? Well, first of all, it creates its own world. So within this temporal, mortal being that I am, I create a fantasy world that I can then say, I've created my own world because I'm God and I live in this world, and whatever I think is true is what is true. So I do not let myself be limited by my limitations. Although in effect you always have to create a smaller world than the total world that's available, because you can't create outside of what is possible to create, so you have to create within what's possible to create. So in a way you could say that God has created a smaller world, so at least he could claim that it's created its own world. On the other hand, God can create its own world to feel its Godhood, but the other side is it needs to be glorified, right? It needs to have this idea of grandeur. And this glorification is exactly what like creates the problem with the internet. Because if we can be glorified on a global scale, then local becomes very mundane. It becomes very not interesting. And everything we do is geared to this global recognition, this global glorification. And so what happens is that we're always living in the conceptual world. We're always living in not here, not now. We're living in the past, we're living in the future, we're living in a dream world, we're living in what could be. We're living in our followers. We're living on our Twitter feed or whatever you want to call it. So the fact is, you're both. You're both the animal, you're both the God. It's not either one. It's just that we've overemphasized the conceptual. And so we've overemphasized the limitlessness and the glorification of the reality instead of survival, which is what the animal is doing, or feeling, right? Just the sensation of things is what the animal is seeking, feedback, so to say. And so what happens is you start living outside in instead of inside out, right? I think this is the biggest problem in the world, that people are living outside in. Basically, what it means is you look outside the world and try to make sense of what it means for you, instead of trying to make sense of you and then having that imprint on the world. And this whole question that lies behind outside in versus inside out is who has the authority, right? Our culture teaches you that the culture has the authority. You can only be glorified by other people, right? Or by other things. You cannot glorify yourself. You need to be glorified. So you're looking for outside verification of your inner feelings. And this is exactly the problem that I think people that actually reach celebrity run into, right? Because they're fantasizing about being famous and being a celebrity. When in that fantasy, they're not realizing probably that they can't take themselves into the fantasy. They can only change the outside setting, but they will remain the same, right? So where you're fantasizing being in front of a crowd of 1 million people and playing music and everyone's going crazy, your fantasy is a feeling that pretends that you will have that feeling. You're part of this picture. But once you're in that place and there's 1 million people, I mean, it's going to create a big adrenaline rush, especially the first few times. But after that, you're realizing, like, I haven't changed. It's the outside that has changed. And that can impress me, but if it impresses me enough, it becomes annoying and I look through it, right? If the friction keeps coming, it loses its shine and it becomes annoying to deal with. And now you're realizing, I haven't changed. I haven't changed at all. It's the outside that has changed. And I was thinking, if the outside would change, I would change. But it's the other way around. If I change, the outside changes, right? And I was talking to someone the other day about meditation, and that's what I mentioned, is that the way you look at the world depends on how you look at meditation, right? If you think outside in is true, then sometimes the outside world becomes too much and you meditate to deal with that or something, I don't know. But it's the other way around, in my perspective, that the way you engage from the inside out is meditative, right? It is observing, it is trying to see what's going on without painting the picture before it's shown, right? Not influencing everything with your thoughts and your wishes and your wants and all, right? All this inner turmoil that is naturally going on because the animal and the God can't really be a unified thing, right? They're always creating inner friction. And so to come from inside out means to oversee that, to know what's going on and to realize that it's influencing the way you interpret things. And then the best way to deal with that is in a meditative way, so to say, which makes the most sense. And then you meditate out. So you interpret the world through this, right? I mean, this is a difficult way to say it, I guess. The easy way to say is that a lot of people think that if the outside world becomes relaxed, they can become relaxed. And the way I experience it is if I'm relaxed, the outside world is relaxed, right? I take the relaxedness with me when interpreting the outside world, and it's not the outside world that determines the lens of relaxedness so I can interpret it, right? Do you understand where I'm coming from? If I'm relaxed, you're relaxed. Very easy. If you start jumping around and screaming, I can still be relaxed because your external happening doesn't determine my relaxedness. I determine my relaxedness and I take it with me. And this is something you have to realize, that If you live outside in, you're basically saying the authority is on the outside. The confirmation of what I think, feel, or feel that I am is external to me. So I'm a victim of what's going on here. If you live inside out, you take charge. You're reliant on yourself and you're saying, I decide what's going on and I decide the filter to look through. And you can take that a step farther by saying, even if I feel bad, I don't accept that authority of myself. This feeling of bad is just a feeling. I might offend people here, but I was talking with someone about whether or not it made sense to have someone change their sexuality, right? Which is a big thing these days. And if you're focusing on sexuality, then changing that makes a lot of sense, but you can't solve the real problem on that level. The problem with the sex change is that you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're thinking you are your sexual identity instead of looking through it and seeing that it has nothing to do with you. It's just, right, the feeling you have that says, my feeling tells me the way I really am and my sexuality are not a match, right? Maybe in a different culture, that feeling would mean I have to cut off my left arm, right? The left arm doesn't belong on my body. Do you understand what I'm saying? This feeling of not having a match between who you think you are and the way your body looks on the sexual area, in the sexual area, it's just what we've told each other that is what it is, right? This dissonance that you're feeling, it's because you're in the wrong body. You're actually a woman in a man's body. But maybe in a different culture, they would say you have one arm too many. You have to cut off one arm, right? I mean, do you understand that these feelings aren't objective, they aren't real, they aren't true, they aren't interpretable. I can't tell you what you're feeling, even when you tell me what you feel, I can't tell you what it means. You have to decide what it means. And when we start saying that we know what it means, like there's objective feelings, we get lost to this external authority that just creates this constant dissonance, this cognitive dissonance between what I feel and what I should feel or what I'm feeling. Or the way to deal with that is to move beyond, transcend it. And coming back to the original idea of local versus global is you need to also be a local being. You can't not be it. You can pretend you're not it, but that's going to create a lot of friction. You need to take care of your tribe, of your community, of the people around you, of yourself locally. You need to take care of your body. You need to eat well, sleep well, drink well, breathe well, walk well. Do you understand? These are all important for the animal to function well. And the animal is the creator of your brain, and the brain is the creator of your thoughts. So it influences you big time. If you don't, you can pretend to just be your thoughts, just be your identity. But it's an illusion, and it's going to hurt. So realize what you are. Realize that you're a twofold being, so to say, and you're basically a threefold being, because next to the animal and the God is the feeler or the observer of that thing that's going on. So act local. Think local. Sure, also think global, and right, but we're coming to an age where misinformation and propaganda are going to be the big thing again. So you can't trust any outside authority anyway. And keeping up with what's going on in the world was an illusion, but we could kind of keep it up because there was the daily news that was pretending to have a grip on what was going on. Now it's going to be crazy because the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, the Europeans probably as well, they're going to just create all this fucking noise, signal, we don't even know what it is anymore, spread whatever. And the moment you start like being interested in what's going on in the rest of the world, you're just going to end up in this illusion factory where nothing you say or think you know can be verified or whatever. And it has no point. It already didn't have any point, but now it's going to be so obvious that it has no point. So it's going to be way more interesting to think and look and inform yourself locally. What's going on in your street? What's going on in your area? Because you could actually do something about it, right? We could all be worried about the kids that have nothing to eat, but for what? Right? What are we doing? It's just entertainment. Oh, they're so sad. Look at them, not eating. Anyway, let's go to McDonald's, right? Anyway, please know, especially if you're young, that you're growing up online and you might think that this global thing, this conceptual world is the world. But I'm telling you it's bullshit, and I'm telling you it needs to be balanced out with local. So there you have it. I'll come back to this thing in a way more structured way. I know I keep saying that for years, but I'm finally getting to the point I'm actually doing that. This was just a quick thing I wanted to share with you. Good luck with it. Peace out and talk to you later.